Hoogland is on Kiki Cord. Chad Swift is on Eldrazi Taxes. Is that what we're calling it? Eldrazi? I guess he does have Thought-Knot Seer and
He's got
Eldrazi
the
Displacer.
Eldrazi Displacer. Yeah, so it is a Hate Bear style deck. Although, actually, it's mono white.
Yeah, I guess he has the Brushland and the Horizon Canopy. Do we have any green in the sideboard? No, we're just kind of throwing him off.
Yeah.
Horizon Canopy lets us draw cards.
Yeah, so these Eldrazi Taxes decks, you know, they've been cropping up online for quite a while. I feel like we haven't really seen them on the Open Series a whole lot yet, but this will be pretty exciting to see this deck in action.
All right, well, Chad does have a copy of Eldrazi Displacer on turn 2 thanks to Eldrazi Temple. That, my friends, is a Murmuring Bosk from Jeff Hoogland. So if we can get the text for that on there. I know it taps for green for free. You can get a black or a white by paying a life, and it enters the battlefield tapped unless you reveal a Treefolk from your hand.
I wonder how much better that is than Mana Confluence.
It's fetchable because it's a forest.
Oh, so, it's fetchable. Okay,
so
that's a big deal.
That's why it taps for green for free. So he was able to find it with a Wooded Foothills. So on Jeff's second turn here, it looks like he has a copy of Wall of Roots and a Birds of Paradise. So Chad is going to accelerate with Eldrazi Temple, but Jeff's going to do it the old-fashioned way. Chad does have a Thought-Knot Seer, though. So let's see what Jeff has in his hand.
And one of the things I really got to give credit to Hoogland for is he's really good at finding the really weird cards in the card pool that end up being quite good, and that Murmuring Bosk is definitely one of them.
All right, so it looks like he had Court of Calling, Collective Brutality, a Wall of Roots, and a couple of lands. That Thought-Knot Seer is going to take care of that Court of Calling out of Jeff's hand, and now we're living off the top.
Yeah, Chad unfortunately still doesn't have any profitable attacks because that Wall of Roots is an 0-4. So Jeff is basically holding the offense at bay for now. And Jeff just wants to keep developing his board, getting more creatures into play. And in basically a generic board stall, Jeff is going to be able to profit more than Chad is.
Especially since he has a way to just win the game. So a lot of times when talking with Jeff and watching him play this game, he basically just kind of like plays it as, you know, just a grindy, value-driven deck that just happens to have a combo kill in it when and if you need it, as opposed to being hyper-focused on that.
Yeah, and another thing too is in certain ways it's a control deck where instead of killing your opponent's creatures, you're just looking to block them, and eventually you just build up into some sort of really powerful endgame later on.
All right, well, unfortunately, Chad, you can't just discard a Plains there. Jeff is going to Collective Brutality. He's going to look at his hand and pick an instant or sorcery, and it looks like we have Plains, Horizon Canopy, Restoration Angel, and I can't tell what that card in between is.
I think it's a Tectonic Edge.
Yeah, oh, it looks like it's a promo Tectonic Edge. And Jeff is just going to play an 0-5 Wall of Roots. So we've got our walls holding down the fort, drawing into something like Court of Calling is going to be pretty good value. We have all of our mana. And
so Chad kind of wants to get some sort of offense going. It may be worth it to blink the 0-5 Wall of Roots and just attack with the Thought-Knot Seer.
Well, Restoration Angel can only hit his own creatures. With the Eldrazi Displacer, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, that will definitely get something going.
I mean, it'll get 4 damage in potentially, but that 4 damage isn't particularly relevant, which is a little unfortunate.
All right, well, he's just going to play a Ghost Quarter and pass the turn back.
And if neither player is taking damage, I feel like this immensely favors Jeff Hoogland.
Well, just going to draw a card, play a Raging Ravine, and pass.
2 cards that Chad could draw that would help kind of break this open are the Brimaz King of Oreskos, because it could just start generating a bunch of tokens, and Mangaro of Condor, or Corondor, could also do a little bit of work.
All right, well, he's going to Restoration Angel his Thought-Knot Seer. He's going to find a Lightning Bolt, use it to kill the Eldrazi Displacer, and then he has 2 lands in hand, so Thought-Knot Seer doesn't do anything.
And Chad is actually putting together some reasonable top decks. Looks like he's got another Restoration Angel, so he's going to be able to tag Jeff's hand again with this Thought-Knot Seer at the end of his draw step if he chooses.
All right. Gonna attack for 3. That's going to drop Jeff down to 14. Here's a Voice of Resurgence.
I like that card. Still doesn't do a whole lot though, and this flying threat is a little bit of a problem.
Especially considering Chad picked up another copy of Restoration Angel.
Yeah, and I would really want to put this other Restoration Angel onto the board.
I mean, he's going to sit on it. Oh, he would have had to have done it in response to the Voice of Resurgence, and he didn't want to.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, I
so
think I would have liked to have played the Restoration Angel there just so that Chad would have more pressure.
yeah.
But it looks like he's looking to save it.
Oh, Horizon Canopy is going to draw him a card. Looks like he picked up another Thought-Knot Seer.
And Thought-Knot Seers are pretty great on the opening turns of the game, but when your opponent is essentially hellbent, they're a little on the weak side because if they don't get anything when they get played, but they give something when they die, that's kind of a bad proposition.
Restoration Angel is going to knock Jeff down to 11. Chad is going to pass the turn. Jeff will draw what appears to be a Path to Exile for the turn. He's going to play his land. Let's see if he decides to start attacking with Irradiant Ravine or if he tries to wait. Nope, he's just going to go ahead and path the Thought-Knot Seer.
And this is one of the good things about having Voice of Resurgence in your deck is it makes it so that when your opponent is holding up mana to potentially do something, you get a lot more value out of your turn.
All right, so Path to Exile is going to target Thought-Knot Seer. Chad will Restoration Angel in response. He's going to stack his triggers so that Thought-Knot Seer will get to exile a card after Jeff draws a card. But Jeff will get one of those elemental tokens from the Voice of Resurgence.
And this elemental token is going to be huge. Just an absolute monster. I mean, right now it's a 6/6.
Yeah, with the Raging Ravine activated, it's a 6/6. He's going to attack with the Raging Ravine and his Voice of Resurgence. You have to try and turn the corner at some point.
And Chad does have Jeff on a 2-turn clock, but that Birds of Paradise is going to be able to act as a chump blocker.
Mm-hmm. Well, Thought-Knot Seer is going to trade with Raging Ravine. Restoration Angel is going to kill the Voice of Resurgence, which will give Jeff another elemental token. Now they're currently both 5/5s.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous with the other elemental token.
Jeff gets to draw a card from the Thought-Knot Seer leaving. Looks like it's a Voice of Resurgence, so he could potentially fetch out of basic planes and play the Voice of Resurgence here.
And in these decks that are mostly creatures like Kiki Cord, Voice of Resurgence can just be such a powerful haymaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty unreal how big these tokens can get, and also just how many of them you can end up getting. Like one Voice of Resurgence netted 2 5/5s. For a 2-mana investment, it's pretty unreal.
Yeah. All right. Chad's going to draw for his turn. He does have a lot of power in the air, but Jeff is threatening to build up a ground force here that's pretty impressive. And if he ever happens to find something like an Eternal Witness to get back that Court of Calling or a Court of Calling.
Or the Path to Exile.
To start chaining some cards here. Oh yeah, the Court was exiled with Thought-Knot Seer, so he's not able to get it back with Eternal Witness. He does still have 3 more in his deck.
And I feel like what Chad wants to do is just line up a kill. He's not going to be able to answer all of Jeff's stuff, and he's probably not going to be able to, play defense particularly well. So I like trying to put Jeff on a 2-turn clock. That Birds of Paradise is going to be able to do some blocking, though, and kind of mess things up.
Right, so Chad is going to play a Thought-Knot Seer, Jeff is Hellbent, and a Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
And, I mean, this Thought-Knot Seer, it's probably just on chump blocking duty. And, when it dies, Jeff's going to be able to draw another card. So these Thought-Knot Seers are looking pretty bad in this particular scenario.
Jeff is just going to attack with his 2 6/6 elementals. Chad is going to chump one of them with a Thalia, take 6. Jeff is going to hold his land in his hand.
And Chad really wishes that he just had like another Restoration Angel. That would have been really good. Or some way to remove this Birds of Paradise.
Mm-hmm. There's a Tectonic Edge for Chad.
And against a lot of decks, these Tectonic Edges and Ghost Quarters would have some good utility, but not against Jeff Hoogland's Wall of Roots Birds of Paradise deck.
Yeah. Restoration Angels are going to crash in. Jeff will chump block one of them. The Birds of Paradise fall down to 1. Tectonic Edge is going to take out Murmuring Bosk that he actually can't use for anything other than green mana.
And there's I guess there's no more basics. Oh, that's Tectonic Edge. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, now we know there's no more basics because that was a Ghost Quarter that time.
Yep. Yeah, Jeff has the second forest in his hand. Just draws another land and is going to scoop the game to just an army of flying creatures. Now, Jeff also has Restoration Angel in his deck. He was just never able to actually find a copy of it. So let's take a look at the player sideboards here as Chad Swift is going to take game 1 here against Jeff Hoogland with Eldrazi Taxes. Chad has 3 Reality Smasher, 2 Sunlance, 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Spellskite, 1 Cataclysmic Gearhulk, a Selfless Spirit, a Kataki War's Wage, and 1 Grafdigger's Cage. How do you think Chad's going to sideboard?
So I think the Reality Smashers are going to be a good source of pressure. Cataclysmic Gearhulk is also kind of an interesting card to play because Jeff plays a lot of creatures. So I think those are going to be the top picks from Chad's side. You could also make a little bit of an argument for Grafdigger's Cage also to interact with some of Jeff's graveyard stuff.
Now on Jeff's side, we have 2 Blessed Alliance, 1 Eidolon of Rhetoric, an Engineered Explosives, a Fulminator Mage, 3 Ghostly Prison, 1 Reclamation Sage, 2 Slaughter Games, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Surgical Extraction. What do we think Jeff's bringing in?
I think that Jeff could make a solid argument for bringing in Blessed Alliance just to play a little bit more defense. But other than that, I don't think he's really going to want to do a whole lot. I think that Jeff is set up pretty well in this game, and a lot of his sideboard cards are matchup specific. And I don't think he has anything specifically for this matchup.
Well, that does make a lot of sense. One of the cool things about Jeff Hoogland's deck that I really like is he just has a bunch of cool non-basic lands in his deck.
Oh, yeah.
All of the fetches, all of those shocks.
Murmuring Bosk.
Even some of the utility lands like Horizon Canopy. There are versions of those cards that you can get, though, that are expeditions.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
And we have
those are real shiny.
And we have a weekly sale going on at StarCityGames.com where you can get up to 25% off the Masterpiece Series cards. So if you're a fan of Chad Swift's deck and you want to get some sweet Aether Vials, there are some Invention versions. If you want to get some awesome lands, those expeditions, up to 25% off Masterpiece Series cards. It ends Monday at 10:59 a.m. So make sure you head on over to StarCityGames.com for their weekly sale to get some of those cards. Are you a big foil guy?
I'm not a big foil guy, but whenever I see someone sit down and I see that their entire deck is foil, I just think to myself, wow, this guy's probably been playing this deck forever and he's probably awesome. And I get a little scared.
Fair enough. Now, one person that strikes fear into the heart of all players in Modern is Jeff Hoogland. So let's learn a little bit more about
61 cards at a time.
him. He has 25 for Bloomington, Illinois. He has 15 open top 8s, but he hasn't quite been able to capture a win yet.
Yeah,
maybe he can change that
insane.
this weekend. 1 invitational top 8. He's a stay-at-home dad with 2 awesome sons and future Magic players. He manages several open-source coding projects focusing in Linux, and he has a master's degree in mathematics. So maybe he's right and we're all wrong because we don't have master's degrees in mathematics and we're all playing 60 cards.
He is the number scientist.
He is the number wizard. So players are going to finish shuffling up here. Who do you think actually has the edge in this matchup?
So I think that generally speaking, Jeff does. We saw that last hand. The early Thought-Knot Seers, or the early Thought-Knot Seer did a lot to help disrupt Jeff's draw. That said, Jeff basically had the ground locked up, and Chad drew 2 out of his 4 Restoration Angels. Other than that, he's got some Flicker Wisps, but he's usually not going to have a whole lot of an air assault. So I think that if, generally speaking, Jeff is going to be able to lock up the ground and just profit in a board stall more than Chad is.
All right, well, as we head into game 2 here, Chad Swift is up a game on Eldrazi Taxes over Jeff Hoogland playing Kiki Cord. Jeff is going to lead off on a Forest and a Birds of Paradise. See if Chad has a turn 1 play. He does. Oh, it's a Sunlance from his sideboard.
Wow,
Gonna
nice.
take out that Birds of Paradise. Sometimes you just got to bolt the bird.
Yeah, and normally basic planes can't do that, but Chad's got those sideboard cards for a reason. A pretty sweet card. I feel like this should see more play than it does, because Lightning Bolt is just so good, and this isn't like really far away from it.
I agree. Here's some Magic trivia for you.
All right, lay it on
me. For those of you who might be playing super long, let's see if Andrew Boswell knows. Do you know what color shifted card this is based off of? Because this is in Planar Chaos, one of the color shifted cards. This card exists in another color.
I mean, I started with like Revised and Ice Age, but I have no idea.
So in Plane Shift, there's a card called Strafe that does 3 damage to a non-red creature.
Okay.
It's just a pure color shifting. You can use that to stump your friends.
Cool.
Not many people sift through a bunch of Magic cards like I do all day, so you might not know that this card exists. But that's what it's based off of.
Flavor text by Gerard. Wow, and the Grafdigger's Cage came in too. Interesting. And the Ghostly Prison. Wow, we're seeing all the sideboard cards.
Yeah, so Jeff has a Voice of Resurgence for his second turn. Chad is just going to fire off an Aether Vial and a Grafdigger's Cage. Jeff has a Ghostly Prison, which is going to be very, very good in multiples against this deck. Like once you start getting multiples down, it really makes the game go long, which is what Jeff wants.
Yeah, that said, yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll see how it plays out.
Thought-Knot Seer from Chad is going to take a Selfless Spirit out of Jeff's hand, leave him with a couple of lands. He does find a Wall of Roots for his turn, but much like last game, he's got a lot of mana and not much to do with it.
Yeah, and this Ghostly Prison, it's going to buy a lot of time, but it doesn't actually do very much. So we'll see how this ends up going. It looks like Chad is in a pretty good situation, though, despite my assessment of the matchup being favorable for Jeff.
Let's see if Chad has another land.
And normally Ghostly Prison would be, pretty good against an aggressive creature deck, but this Eldrazi Taxes deck, it has a few creatures that have relatively high power, and it has Aether Vial, so it can still use its mana to allow just 1 or 2 good threats to attack and still deploy threats. That said, Wall of Roots has something to say about this Thought-Knots here.
Chad does have a land for his turn. It's a copy of Tectonic Edge. Let's see if he decides to attack with the Thought-Knot Seer. It's not going to do much with that 0/5 Wall of Roots. He has an Aether Vial. They can put a Leonin Arbiter on the battlefield. And now we're going to Ghost Quarter. Looks like Jeff is going to pay the 2 mana to be able to search.
And what's nice about this play is this means that the Thought-Knot Seer could potentially attack. Although the Voice of Resurgence chump blocking could be something that he would be worried about.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Chad didn't actually just Tectonic Edge that untapped non-basic land and then utilize the Ghost Quarter as a strip mine. But even then, with Jeff having that Wall of Roots, I don't know if Mana Denial is going to be the perfect game plan here.
Right.
Jeff did pick up a copy of Court of Calling, though, which doesn't really do much because of that Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah.
Aether Vial is going to tick up to 3. Back to Chad's turn. There's another Eldrazi Temple.
Yeah, and things are going pretty good for Chad so far. Jeff just doesn't really have much going on. He's got his defenses online, but he's not really doing anything.
Right, Sunlance is going to take out the Voice of Resurgence, except it can't because it's white.
Yep. It's green, but it's also white.
It is. Very quick. Jeff very quickly points that out to his opponent.
Yeah, Jeff is a sharp player. He's been playing for a long time. There's a reason that he maintains position as one of our top players on the Open Series, and it's because he's very knowledgeable of all the cards.
All right. Well, Thought-Knot Seer is going to attack. 2 mana will be paid for the Ghostly Prison. That's going to knock Jeff down to 12.
And Jeff is just using his life total as a resource, not willing to chump block with his Wall of Roots or his Voice of Resurgence.
Well, there is a Path to Exile. So we can use that to take care of the Thought-Knot Seer. Chad might have a Flicker Wisp here.
Oh, and this is brutal.
Looks like
wow.
He does. So Flicker Wisp is going to be able to blink the Thought-Knot Seer. It's going to allow Jeff to draw a card.
And that's a Restoration Angel that he can't cast. Oh, wait, he can cast it. Never mind. I was a little dyslexic there with which lands were tapped and which lands were untapped.
This Grafdigger's Cage is still going to pose a big problem for Jeff. It'll be interesting to see what he brought in, if anything, to be able to interact with that Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, I would imagine that he probably has nothing. I mean, you know, there could be an engineered explosives. There could be a Reclamation Sage. Reclamation Sage isn't too bad because it also hits Aether Vial. Although we didn't see that in game 1, so Jeff, you know, may or may not know that it's present. But this game's starting to look pretty bad for Jeff. He really needs to get something going on. And a lot of his good top decks, like a Chord of Calling, are not currently live draws.
Let's see here. Thought-Knot Seer is going to crash in. Jeff's going to double block with Voice and Restoration Angel.
And I like just blocking or killing the Restoration Angel because this means that your Flicker Wisp is going to be able to attack on subsequent turns.
So Chad does. And that, if that was a Thought-Knot Seer, Jeff should have drawn a card.
Yeah, I think he's got the one card in front of him.
Okay. Oh, it's just kind of blended into the mat.
Oh, yeah, it's camouflaged.
All right, and there's another Leonin Arbiter. Oh, and there's a Kiki-Jiki that he can't quite cast.
It's pretty good, though. Kiki-Jiki with Voice of Resurgence makes attacks pretty difficult, but Chad does have a flyer. Oh, is that a Reality Smasher?
That is
I'm
a
not really
Reality
sure.
Smasher, which is going to come down and smash the realities of potentially trying to win this
Well,
game.
next turn it will. The Ghostly Prison is doing some good work here.
It's going to buy him some time. There's the Path to Exile. Not really going to do much. This Eldrazi Taxus deck is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's looking great right now. I mean, a lot of this game is Chad's hasn't drawn a lot of mana, but Jeff has. So that's certainly a big part of what's going on here. But I agree, it's looking good.
Yeah. Also, like the Grafdigger's Cage. Seems like it was real good this game.
Yep.
That Chord of Calling not being able to be used for Jeff. It's
Yeah,
pretty rough.
and Jeff wasn't able to resolve a Chord of Calling in the last game either because it got tagged by Thought-Knots here. So Chad doesn't have a whole lot of interaction, but the interaction he's had has been on point.
All right, well, Reality Smasher is going to smash in for 5, drops Jeff down to 7. He's going to draw an Eternal Witness.
And what's annoying about this is the, you know, you would like to get the Path to Exile to kill the Reality Smasher, but I don't think Jeff is particularly excited about potentially discarding his Kiki-Jiki.
Yeah, so I think that he's just going to Witness back Resto. Resto blink the Witness, get back Path to Exile. And the plan here might just be to chump with this Voice of Resurgence on Chad's next attack.
And actually, instead of chumping, I would probably block with Voice plus Restoration Angel, because then it's a 1-for-1 trade with the Reality Smasher, because you'd have 6 toughness in front of it.
Ooh, this Eldrazi Displacer is going to put a damper on things.
Well, it's still a little tricky for Chad to be able to attack and use the Displacer. He needs another land.
All right, well, Thought-Knot Seer is going to come down for Chad.
And it's going to be able to tag that Path to Exile, and there's nothing that Jeff can do about it at this point.
Ooh, he might actually take the Kiki-Jiki, so then he would just be dead to a double red land. Looks like that is what he's going to do.
Just in time.
Reality Smasher can still attack. Man, Eldrazi Temple's good.
Yeah. And this Eldrazi Displacer can do a lot to help keep the tokens from Voice of Resurgence in check. I still like the double block on the Reality Smasher, though, because it's just a 1-for-1 on a card that's kind of hard to 1-for-1.
Yep. And the Path to Exile will be able to take care of the Displacer.
Standard challenge players, round 3 pairings are about to be posted. Please find your pairing in your seat. Standard challenge players, round 3 is going
That said, Jeff still, isn't really doing anything. And the fact that Kiki-Jiki is exiled is a little bit of a big deal, because if Jeff is ever able to kill the Grafdigger's Cage, it's he's still gonna have a hard time getting it.
Path to Exile will hit that Eldrazi Displacer. Jeff has another copy of Voice of Resurgence. But Chad just drew another Restoration Angel. I guess it's his first of this match, or this game.
The Flyers really have been the story of the game, though. There's so little going on the ground. I mean, we have a couple ground attacks here and there, but it really does seem like it's coming down to the Flyers, which is not surprising considering Jeff has Wall of Roots and Voice of Resurgence in his deck.
All right, Jeff is going to draw for his turn. Let's see what type of action he can cobble together here. What has to happen for Jeff to be able to win this game?
I feel like outside of just an incredible top deck, I feel like what he would need is for Chad to basically cast a spell on Jeff's turn so that both of those Voice of Resurgence is triggered. But because Jeff isn't making any attacks, it's unlikely to happen. But chaining together these Restoration Angels with the Eternal Witness is definitely a good source of card advantage.
All right, so Jeff is going to resto the Witness, get back a resto. Chad is going to cast a Restoration Angel on Jeff's end step, and Jeff's going to trigger for 2 elementals.
Carrier online.
Kind of like what you just mentioned.
Yep. And that's one of the few reasons that Chad would want to cast a spell on Jeff's turn. Oh,
He's
man.
Gonna blink Thought-Knot Seer. He'll be able to take a Restoration Angel from Jeff's hand if he wants, but there is also a Solid Pride Mage now.
And both of these tokens are 7/7s. That is huge. And Jeff's going to be able to play another creature on his turn to potentially make them 8/8s.
Yeah, well, he will be able to resto on Chad's turn to blink the Eternal Witness.
And he wants to do this so that
Exile.
Chad doesn't have an opportunity to top deck a removal spell.
Yeah, on Chad's upkeep. Chad's going to put the Vial up to 4.
And now this game is turned completely around. Jeff has the air locked up with both of his Restoration Angels, and he has 2 massive attackers in the form of these 2 8/8 elemental tokens.
Well, Sunlance.
All right, 7/7.
Sunlance is finally going to find a target and take out that Eternal Witness. Yep, pointing at the Ghostly Prison, slowing the game down.
Yeah, I mean, on this turn, I don't think it's really doing anything, though. But man, oh man, did this game turn around. And this is, basically what I thought would happen is Chad's going to have a decent start, but Jeff is going to be able to bog the game down. And Jeff is the deck that has access to card advantage, whereas Chad doesn't. And all of Jeff's card advantage works in a board stall.
So this is going to be the either 3rd or 4th time that Jeff has cast Path to Exile. And this is the first time that Chad's going to actually have mana available to pay for his own Leonin Arbiter. If he would have only had 1 Arbiter.
Yeah.
But now that there's 2, it takes 4 mana to be able to search. And so it's just been true 1 mana removal spell. So Jeff is going to path the Restoration Angel and go on the offensive. 2 Restos are going to attack. 2 7/7 Elementals are going to attack. And he has 2 Voice of Resurgences back to block and turn into more Elementals if Chad decides to start attacking.
Huge, huge. And normally, bringing in Ghostly Prison when you're planning on using Path to Exile against your opponent's creatures is pretty counter-synergistic idea. But knowing that Chad's deck has these Leonin Arbiters and an Aven Mind Sensor certainly makes it a much more justifiable play.
Chad has a Ghost Quarter for his turn. Looks like he has a Mind Sensor in his hand. This is not looking good for him now, especially as a game that looked like it was doing very, very well.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think what it really comes down to is Jeff finding a Restoration Angel that was able to get him back another Restoration Angel, because that meant that he had the air locked up and he could potentially start beating down in the air. The elemental tokens were certainly the proverbial nail in the coffin to just make it so that the game ended in a much faster fashion. But in terms of who wins and who loses, I actually don't think those elemental tokens were that big of a deal.
So seeing how that game played out, do we think that Chad is going to make any changes to his sideboarding here?
His sideboard cards were pretty good. The Sunlance and the Grafdigger's Cage certainly came into play, as did the Reality Smasher. I don't think he's going to be bringing in any new cards, though.
What about on Jeff's side?
After seeing the Grafdigger's Cage, he may consider the Engineered Explosives or the Reclamation Sage.
Yeah, I think just like the presence of Aether Vial makes Rex Sage potentially worth bringing in, but now that you've seen Grafdigger's Cage, like, we definitely want the Rex Sage. Also might even want the Explosives too. It looks like there is one Grafdigger's Cage in Chad's sideboard, so he did have it right on time.
And if you can tag the Aether Vials, then Flicker Wisp becomes a much weaker card. So that's something that is nice about having some removal for Aether Vial. You can make it so that you don't walk into certain plays.
Now, both of these players are battling their hearts out over the course of this weekend to try and make it into the top 8 today, to try and win this tournament. But if you are able to make it into the top 8, not only do you get some points and some cold hard cash, you also get invited to the StarCityGames.com Invitational. Our Season 3 Invitational will be coming up here in Atlanta at the beginning of December.
It's a great tournament.
And to win one of those, like Liam Lonergan did, you can get your own token.
Yeah, super, super sweet. You'll definitely be the envy of all your friends if you can, manage to achieve this accomplishment. It's definitely one thing that I've had on my bucket list, and every single time I'm trying to do an envy, I'm like, what would I get as my token?
Especially in like Liam's case, where you just like you play the deck that you like to play, which isn't a very popular deck. You get to make a token that like we don't already have. So now, like, anytime there's a need for a 1/1 elf, Liam Lonergan is to the rescue.
Yeah, I mean, like, his name becomes synonymous with his favorite deck, which is just an awesome thing all around.
All right, we're heading into Game 3 here. For those of you just joining us, Chad Swift is on Eldrazi Taxes. Jeff Hoogland is on Kiki Cord. Chad has a Leonin Arbiter on turn 2, but Jeff will fetch in response, get a Stomping Ground, fall to 17, and Lightning Bolt that Leonin Arbiter. Let's see if he has a turn 2 play to follow this up.
Jeff, in his 61 card deck, he's only got 3 Lightning Bolts. Just, mathematically figuring out the perfect number for everything.
So you're saying there should be 62 cards?
No, I mean,
fourth Lightning Bolt?
Jeff's the number scientist. You heard it here first. 3 Lightning Bolts, 61 card deck is the way to go.
All right, that is white. Chad Swift, yet again. Your deck has a bunch of white creatures in it.
Yeah.
All right, so Jeff is going to fall to 16, play a Selfless Spirit. Chad is going to use all of his mana this turn to play Eldrazi Displacer and pass the turn back. Ooh, there is that Blessed Alliance.
Blessed Alliance is a pretty nice way to answer Reality Smasher. It's also a card which kind of plays well with Ghostly Prison, because typically with a card like Blessed Alliance, the thing that's problematic is if they attack with a bunch of creatures, some of which are bad and some of which are good. But Ghostly Prison basically means that your opponent's only going to be attacking with their best creatures, so Blessed Alliance is always going to tag something that's just great.
Yeah, it's definitely good in conjunction with Ghostly Prison. All right, Jeff is just going to fetch out a Murmuring Bosk, fall to 15, attack for 2, knocking Chad down to 18 and pass the turn back. Let's see if Chad decides to attack into this Blessed Alliance.
Got to attack into it at some point, and it's certainly not on Chad's radar.
All right, Blessed Alliance is going to make him sacrifice an attacking creature, Restoration Angel is going to blink it. It will no longer be attacking, and that will save it.
Yep. Really nice play from Chad. Man, we've been seeing a lot of Restoration Angel in these last 2 rounds, and it has been doing work.
Just a reminder that that card is insane.
Yeah, it's really good.
When it was in Standard, it's just like, it's almost impossible to play correctly.
Yeah, it was
into
fun.
the face of that card.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to be on damage control.
Yeah, if there's a lot of Restoration Angels floating around, I may have to reconsider one of my pet cards in my sideboard, which is Bituminous Blast. It's a real good one.
Chad can even blink his own Resto Angel to re-blink something if he needs to.
It doesn't say non-angel? I don't even remember.
No, if he can...
with the Eldrazi Displacer.
Displacer, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so Resto is going to come down. It's going to ambush an Eldrazi Displacer. Jeff is still going to take 3 and fall down to 12.
And we are at Restoration Angel parity. Chad was able to get some value off of his Resto, and Jeff is now able to get some value off of his own. So in the Restoration Angel mirror, though, which illustration do you think wins? The original or the promo?
I like the original, but I also think the Voice of Resurgence is very good in the Restoration Angel mirror.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so we've got a Spellskite, a Voice of Resurgence, and Jeff is going to use his fetch now before any potential shenanigans from Chad. Going to find another red source tapped. That way, if he has another red source and happens to draw Kiki-Jiki, he might just win the game.
No big deal.
And
Don't mind top decking and just instantly winning. Spellskite is a lot of security for that line of play also.
Yeah, it's very good against Eldrazi Displacer for sure.
Oh, yeah. And normally, Eldrazi Displacer would be able to keep any Voice of Resurgence tokens in check, but Spellskite is going to be able to play guard duty in a number of ways.
So with this setup, he actually can protect his own Eldrazi Displacer from removal by blinking his Resto Angel and using Resto to blink the Eldrazi Displacer.
Yeah.
You watch my back, I got yours.
Yep.
Best friends forever. Eldrazi Displacer, Restoration Angel. We're seeing it here on SCG Live.
Hashtag BFFs. And this Sunlance is unfortunately doing nothing.
Well, it can deal 3 damage to Spellskite if you want.
Yeah.
Because Spellskite is not white. All right. Chad is
now
going
what's Chad going to do here?
Chad's going to attack with his Restoration Angel. And he's going to deal 3 damage to Jeff's Restoration Angel.
I wonder if he was... we've seen him forget that Sunlance can't target white creatures a number of times. I wonder if this is going to be...
Well, there's a Flicker Wisp. Let's see what he decides to remove.
Might have been a situation where he forgot about Sunlance again, but...
Yeah. All right, well, he's just going to blink his planes. Looks like there's a Reclamation Sage that Jeff picked up. One of the full art promos. I like that art. One of the few cards that I prefer the promo art over the original. Horizon Canopy is just going to be sacrificed to draw a card.
Yeah, and we see
Solid Pride Mage.
Jeff pulling way ahead in this particular game. He's just got more stuff, and his is the deck that, you know, if there's no attacks are being made from either player, Jeff is just going to be doing a lot more.
Just never giving Chad any good targets for Sunlance.
Right.
I'm actually, so outside of Birds of Paradise, I don't think there are any like actual juicy targets for that card. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that he is leaving them in.
Yeah, I feel like Chad is probably looking at Jeff's mana base and saying, oh, he's a 3-4 color deck or whatever, and is bringing in the Sunlance for that reason. It was good against like turn 1 Birds of Paradise.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, here we have Reality Smasher.
But this is still just going to be a 1-for-1.
Yeah,
Restoration plus either of the 2/2s means that Jeff is actually going to have an easy time dealing with this. And the Flicker Wisp will be able to get in for 1 attack, but Jeff can potentially trade the Selfless Spirit for it. Oh, actually, you can just trade the Selfless Spirit for the Reality Smasher. I like that play.
That seems like a favorable
That's real
trade.
good. Yep. I'll trade my 2-drop for your 5-drop.
Oh, and there's a Revelark now.
Wow.
Man.
So this is the first time where we're actually going to be able to see Jeff's deck really do what it's designed to do. The deck only has one Revelark, but with all the Court of Callings, he can usually find it whenever he wants it. In these long games, it ends up being an attrition powerhouse.
So he's going to attack for 3 with the Voice of Resurgence, drop Chad down to 14, cast a Revelark. When it leaves the battlefield, he gets to put 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from his graveyard into play, and has evoked 6. Selfless Spirit has 2 power. Voice of Resurgence also has 2 power.
And it says leaves play, so you can blink it with Restoration Angel.
Correct. He also is just going to be able to block with both his Pride Mage and his Revelark here, and trade the Revelark for the Reality Smasher and get back Pride Mage and Selfless Spirit when the Revelark dies.
Not too bad. That seems to be what Jeff is angling for. And this is a, pretty bad situation for Chad because he can attack, but his attacks just don't really do anything.
Yeah.
And this is really what Jeff's deck wants to do. It's just, gets in this mire of a board state. And Jeff just has all these options, and his opponents generally, they can attack, but attacking just doesn't really accomplish anything.
Let's see what Jeff decides to attack with here. Just a Selfless Spirit. Exalted is going to make that 3. Chad's going to fall down to 11. Birds of Paradise from Jeff. We're just a Court of Calling away from winning with Kiki Jiki.
And you can see with Jeff that he didn't attack with his Restoration Angel, and I think that's a real sign of strength in this particular scenario. I think that's Jeff saying, I just want to protect my life total. There's no way I can lose so long as I don't give my opponent an opportunity to steal the game with some weird way.
It's also like Restoration Angel isn't really something that can be blinked effectively by Eldrazi Displacer,
right?
Because then you can just blink something else and have it be untapped.
Right, like the Selfless Spirit.
Yeah. And so it looks like they're... Okay, so he tapped 3 lands, didn't announce that there was any mana floating. Just tried to tap something down. Jeff paid 2. He's targeting his angel, so he... Looks like Displacer targeted Restoration Angel. Jeff is just going to pay a couple life to redirect it to the Spellskite.
And I wouldn't mind letting the Restoration Angel blink the Selfless Spirit.
Yeah. I wonder if Jeff doesn't quite realize that's how it's going to work.
Oh, I'm sure Jeff realizes. He just... I just don't know his reasons.
Fair. All right, so we're going to get an attack for 5 here.
And things are looking pretty bad for our Swift player. This Eldrazi Taxes deck has been pretty sweet, though. I would definitely like to see more of it. It definitely looks like in this situation, though, he needs either a slightly more potent way to attack Jeff, or he needs more card advantage so that he can actually trade and slog through what Jeff is bringing to the table.
And so here's the Sunlance on the birds. So he'll tap the birds for blue and redirect the Sunlance to the Spellskite. Let's see what Chad decides to go with here.
And he can do some shenanigans with the Eldrazi Displacer, but he just doesn't have enough attacking power. So now he's going to have to use this Eldrazi Displacer defensively. And between the Birds of Paradise making blue mana and Jeff being able to use his Spellskite for 2 life, I feel like Jeff should be able to cobble together a lethal attack here. It's just a matter of if he wants to go for it or not.
Yeah,
he could play things a little bit more patiently.
Maybe just attacks with all of his creatures. then he can stop two of the blinks and have lethal.
Yeah, the thing that you would want to worry about is an opposing Restoration Angel, because the Restoration Angel would be a surprise blocker. It flicker his Flicker Wisp, which would essentially be 2 blockers. So one Restoration Angel essentially would mean that it's like 3 blockers for 4 mana.
Yeah.
But it looks like Chad is just going to be trying to use his Eldrazi Displacer to basically play as much defense as possible.
So it looks like he's going to try and blink his Flicker Wisp. Jeff will redirect it to Spellskite.
And he can try to do this again, but Jeff can pay 2 life, and Jeff is just going to have more than enough lethal attackers.
And that's what's going to happen. Jeff Hoogland is going to win the match, 2-1 over Chad Swift on Eldrazi Taxes. He's just going to pick up a win with his Kiki Core deck. That was a pretty interesting set of games.